Industrial Defender's Automation Systems Manager adds enormous amount of capabilities with respect to asset management. Asset management is obviously incredibly important for being able to manage your automation system environment, especially as the complexity of it grows. Mike Dugan's going to give you a quick demonstration of some of the key features associated with the Automation Systems Manager asset management capabilities.
So the Automation Systems Manager has a tab specifically for asset management of your industrial control systems or any type of system that may be in your environment. So if I come over to our Asset tab, you'll see we have a bunch of options. We have an asset dashboard, the ability to check the health status of your assets in your environment, and then we also have, towards the bottom here, an asset administration screen. If I click on that tab, we're going to get an overview of all of the devices that are in your environment. So you see, in my demonstration environment, I've got a list of probably about 40 devices that I'm collecting data from at any given point in time. And we look over these assets through a variety of different types of data points. We can identify the name of the asset, what type of asset it is, and this is customizable. This can be whatever you want to put in there. I've identified it based on whether it's a workstation or a server, a switch, or if it's a specific vendor control system, I've identified that control system. You'll see the IP address, the operating system type, location, region, a bunch of basic information just to identify your assets. This information is sortable, so if I want to look at only my assets that are here in Foxborough, I can drag this location tab up to the top and open it up so I see only my assets that are in Foxborough. Once you've sorted it and you found the device that you're looking for, you can click into each of these devices and go over specifically the information that we're collecting for each individual device. So let me look for a generic device. Let's see if we have a Windows XP system here. All right, here we go, Demo XP1 Manage. So this is just a Windows XP device that has our Industrial Defender software agent installed. Now, as you can see, we have Monitor, we have also Protect available. There's different types of applications that can be deployed on these, or we can even collect this data without a software agent. So don't feel that you need to have a software agent installed for this data to be collected. If I click into this Industrial Defender Demo XP1 Manage device, and then open up the most recent configuration set, you'll see that there's 7 tabs of information available for this device. Now these 7 tabs are going to be available for each device type that we have in here, whether it be a Windows system like this one, or a Linux system, a switch, a router, an RTU, it doesn't matter. We're going to collect these different sets of information for each individual device, and it's going to be normalized regardless of the device type, so that you can even compare to dissimilar devices. You'll also see that there's historical configurations here. So anytime any of this information changes for any of these devices, you're going to have historical records of what the system was configured like previously. Looking at this administrative properties screen, this is the only tab of information that actually needs to be imported or manually entered in. This can be done real quick through a simple Excel spreadsheet import, CSV file import. This is the way that you can customize the information that you see on that main screen. Everything else that you see here, asset details, software patches, ports, firewall rules, user accounts, all of that information is going to be collected automatically to ensure that you have all of this information on a regular basis for any compliance or troubleshooting or just basic asset management needs. Just to show you some examples of the information we're collecting, if I go into asset details, we're looking at the basic operating system functions, hardware statistics. This is a Microsoft Windows XP Professional. We've got the system version. We should see the manufacturer details. This is a virtual machine, so it's coming up as VMware, but if this was an Intel box or an HP box, you would get those manufacturer details, and then a bunch of log settings. If I click over to software, you'll see all of the software that's currently deployed on this device, the version, and then we also collect the installation date, and that's available on some of our other screens. Patches will show you which patches have been deployed on this system. Ports will show you what ports are currently open, the interface that they're open on, and which process is keeping those ports open. Firewall rules for a Windows device would be Windows Firewall. User accounts is going to show you what user accounts are set up, whether they're enabled or not, what type of user they are. All of this information is collected on a regular scheduled basis. That is a customizable time frame, typically every day. It could be every couple of hours, it could be every couple of weeks, however you want to set it up. Collected on an automatic basis, and it's compared against all previous configurations to make sure nothing on that device has changed. So if somebody was to deploy a new piece of software, if somebody wants to add a new user account, or if somebody wants to change a firewall rule on any of these devices, you're going to know about that within the next day or whenever that time frame is that you've set up this data collection. So you can see, looking at this generic Windows device, the valuable types of information that we're collecting for these systems. Now, this device is very generic. It's a virtual machine that I just set up within the past month. So there's not a lot of information on it, but you can see the value in the different types of data we're collecting. And you'll be able to see that in even more detail as we get into these use cases and as we start to look at other device types, vendor devices, firewall switches, that type of thing.
Here we are looking at the asset management screen for Industrial Defender's Automation Systems Manager. We'd like to actually show you a couple use cases that are interesting and valuable to customers with regard to asset management use in the field. Mike Dugin's going to introduce that for us.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually look at what a configuration exception would look like. And when I say configuration exception, what I mean by that is something has changed on this machine over a recent period of time. Maybe new software has been installed, new patches have been installed, or maybe a port has changed. An application that was running on one port changed to a different port. So what we're going to do is we're going to move over to our asset search. So when our asset search screen opens up, you'll see that we have a checkbox or a red X on the right side of the screen. That green checkbox indicates that nothing has changed on that system since the last time that we've collected data from it. But that red X indicates to me that something has changed on that system and I should go in and investigate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that same Windows XP generic device, and we're going to see that there's a red X there indicating that some of the details of this device have changed since the last time we've collected this information. If I click on that screen, I'll get a view of what those changes were. So looking at asset details, I can see that the DNS settings of this device have changed from an internal DNS server to external DNS servers. So the real generic ones that you see on many of the devices that are connected to the internet. This gives me an indication that potentially this machine was previously not connected to the internet and now is, and that could be a bad sign. We can also go over and see that there's been software installed. You can see that the Google Chrome browser was installed on this device on September 11th, 2012. We've also had the Google Update Helper installed on September 16th and WinSCP installed on September 11th. If I go over to patches, I could see that there's been several instances of patches deployed on this system since the last time that this configuration was checked. On September 12th and October 11th, there were several installations of patches from a Windows update. And if I go over to ports and services, I can see that this alg.exe process was using port 1030 TCP, but is now using port 1028 TCP. Each of these changes could be indicative of something that has changed on the system that wasn't supposed to change, or changes that were planned. You have the option to accept those changes and update the configuration, or reject those changes and highlight this device as being out of compliance with its expected configuration.
Industrial Defender's Automation Systems Manager has a wide range of asset management capabilities. Our engineer, Mike Dugan, is going to explain some of the ones that have been most useful in the field, particularly around configuration change management. Go ahead, Mike.
So imagine you come into work one Friday morning and you discover a system that's not working properly as it was before. You could think about the last time you know that that device was working properly and actually run a configuration comparison using the Automation Systems Manager to see what has changed on that system over that period of time. So the example we're going to use is just a generic Windows XP device, and we're going to look at a change that has happened from a Monday to a Friday. So you know that on Monday afternoon when you left the office, this system was working properly. Yet Friday morning when you log back in, it no longer is. And you want to see what has changed on the system over that period of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a few examples of what those changes could look like. I'm going to start with software. If we look at the software on that system, comparing Monday and Friday, let's see if we can find any changes that were made to the system. We know the system's located in Foxborough. It's a Windows system, Windows XP, and we want to look for all values and then just see what differences may be. You know that when you were working on that system on Monday, September 10th, it was working properly. Yet when you logged into that system on Friday, September 14th, it no longer was. And you want to see what has changed on that system over that period of time. The first example that we're going to look at here is software. So we're going to run a report comparing those two dates and times. And you can see right off the bat that there's been 3 pieces of software added to that system over that 1 week time period. Google Chrome, Google Update Helper, and WinSCP were deployed on that system between those 2 dates. Now, if you're not certain that the software being installed on the system was what could have caused the change in the functionality of the system, you could also go and check patches. A lot of time patches being deployed on Patch Tuesday, for example, before they've been tested, could cause some functionality concerns with the system. So what we're going to do is we're going to also look at patches over that same time period to see if there were any patches installed on the system that maybe shouldn't have been or may not have been tested. So let's select the same system, Windows XP generic device. We're going to look for all values again, and we're going to select the same date range, September 10th through September 14th. I'm going to run the report. And then we can see, looking at this list, that there was also a change in the patches that are deployed on the system. It looks like about 6 patches were deployed on September 12th. Maybe those weren't tested properly, and those are the cause for the system not working. One other thing that I'm going to check here is to see if any of the applications that I've used have maybe opened up a different port than they're typically using. So if I go under Configuration, Ports and Services, we're going to look at the open ports that may have changed over that same time period. We're going to use the same dates, September 10th through September 14th. And view the report. Now we can see that while the open ports for most of these applications have stayed the same, there was one change down near the bottom. Port 1030 was the port that was open on September 10th, but port 1028 is the port that's open on September 14th. So you can see how Industrial Defender's asset management capabilities give you the ability to dig deep down into these systems to see the simplest of changes that may have happened over any period of time, whether it be a day or a month, and gives you the information needed to properly diagnose functionality issues with your devices.